What's up, guys? We're back to r/nuclear revenge. Let's not waste any time. I have been waiting for this subreddit. I'll see you in a bit. Grandpa beats pedophile. Rest of the men may have finished the job. I sorta told this story on Ask Reddit before, but didn't go into full details. So if this sounds familiar, that's why. This is a story my grandpa once told me. Trigger warning. Backstory. My grandpa went to prison in his late teens, early 20s. He ended up spending 11 years in there. This was prison in the 30s and 40s, so to say it wasn't easy is putting it mildly. Anyway, he came out with a terrible temper and more prone to violence. GP, Grandpa. GM, Grandma. POS, Child Molester. Story. This all happened in the early 60s in the rural Midwest. GP and my grandma raised their kids the only way they knew how, picking vegetables as migrant farmers. In most of these little towns they lived in, the cops didn't really come around. The people in town just usually handle the problems in their own way. In one of these towns, there was a POS who had become known frequently raped his daughters and would sell them to his friends in a town they lived in before. It was kind of an open secret, but no one had proof. So most of the parents, my grandparents included, just told their kids they couldn't go to that house. Apparently, one day POS makes a comment to another man how GP was sitting on a gold mine with all those pretty young daughters he had. The guy comes and tells GP what POS said, and GP puts out word for that guy to stop by that afternoon. POS comes over, and GP is talking to him, and says he should come over for supper that night, and asks what his favorite meal is. At this point in time, POS doesn't know GP knows what he said. The guy tells him fried chicken and fried potatoes. GP says, "Well, I'll get my wife to make it, and you come back over in a few hours." After he leaves, GM, who is visibly shaking, says she doesn't want to make this meal, and asks him what he's doing. And he says, "Honey, make it. Every man deserves a last meal." A few hours later, POS comes back, and GM has made a spread. She always was a great cook. At this point, all their kids were at my GM's parents' house. POS makes himself a big plate and digs in. He's making small talk with GP the whole time. After he finished off his second plate, GP asked him, did he get his fill? POS says, "Hell yeah, you're a lucky man. Your wife is a great cook." And GP hit him. GP beat him through the house and onto the front porch. As he was beating him on the front porch, most of the other fathers in the area came by to watch. When GP was done, the man wasn't moving much, and the porch was soaked in blood. GM told us that the 6 months that they were living there after this incident, she couldn't get the bloodstains completely out. At this point, a few of the fathers walked into the yard and said, "Don't worry about it, we'll take care of this." And they grabbed POS and dragged him to one of their cars. Now, Grandma never could tell us if the guy died or not, but POS's family was still there when my grandparents and their kids moved to the next town, and still hadn't seen him. My guess is if he didn't die from his injuries, the other fathers had themselves a little party that night. TLDR, pedophile makes a sexual comment about my grandfather's kids. Grandpa feeds him his last meal and then beats him near death / to death. Nearly 100 years ago, my great-grandfather saved my life. Good day to all my fellow Redditors. I'm still getting the hang of this app and have several great stories. This is one of my favorite from my family. So, a small backstory on my family, at least the ones involved. My great-grandfather from northern Tennessee, he and most of his family had been known to be too nice to others. He would give the shirt off his back to anyone in need. When he moved him and his wife and kids, they came through Little Rock, Arkansas, and my GGP, great-grandpa, enjoyed a game of poker in a saloon and won the pot. It had the deed to a small home and orchard in the Kiamichi Mountains in southeastern Oklahoma. He loaded everyone up and moved there. My grandpa was born 3 months premature. My GGM was 6 months pregnant, and went outside to pick pears off the tree in the front yard. And while doing so, she went into labor and popped out this tiny thing that would become my grandpa. They said he was so tiny he slept for the first several weeks in a shoebox. Doctor said he didn't think he'd survive. Seeing him playing in the front yard 1 year later, said, "Well, I think the boy may just make it." On to the story. Sorry for its length. Every letter of this story is true. Here's the cast. GGP, great grandpa. GGM, great grandma. GA, great aunt. AM, attempted murderer. So, in 1924, my GGP had been asked several times by different people to sell the land and house he and his family lived in. The land was well worth a deal of money, as it had very fertile ground for that region. And the house was a decent sized house plus the orchard. GGP and GGM didn't want to sell the land. They loved it so much. There was one person that made several attempts to not only talk my GGP into selling, but even tried to take my GGM away from my GGP. He had a big crush on her, to say the least. One day, he came to the house just before sundown, and this is what I was told went down. GGP: "Oh, hello AM, how can I help you?" AM: "Hi GGP, hello GGM," waving at her. "I wanted to talk here to GGP about selling y'all's land to me. I would give y'all a great deal of money for it." GGP: "AM, I'm in no way interested in selling the land. Being it so late, however, have you eaten anything for supper?" AM: "No, I haven't. I'm famished." GGP: "Well, GGM has some beans in the pot and fresh cornbread in the oven. Like I said, I ain't interested in selling, but I'm always willing to listen. Come on in and have a seat." They both came in, sat down in the living room, and talked a bit about, of course, the land and other such things. AM: "Where's y'all's bathroom?" GGP: "Through the kitchen out the back door, and you'll see the outhouse." AM left and went out the back door. He came in a few minutes later. GA: "Excuse me, sir, what you doing?" She was like 8 at the time. AM: "Oh, hello. I'm just putting some salt in the beans." GA: "But my ma done did that." AM: "Oh? Well, I thought it just needed a little more." GA said, "Okay," and went off to the living room. AM stirred the pot a few more times, then walked into the living room, where he and GGP talked a bit more about whatever. A few minutes later, GGP: "Hey GGM, I think them beans and cornbread are done. Why not get a bowl?" GGM got up and went to the kitchen, cutting a big slice of cornbread and putting it down on a fresh bowl of beans, and placed the bowl in front of AM. AM: "Oh, thank you very much, but I'm actually not that hungry. Y'all go ahead and have a bowl. I'll just wait till I get home." GGP pulls out from under the table where they were sitting next to a .44 Colt revolver and simply says, GGP: "Them beans are especially for you. Now, you gonna eat them beans, aren't you?" AM turns white. So what did he do? AM ate the whole bowl. GGP then, after seeing him finish the bowl, told him to leave. He was sweating and looked dead already, and went to stand up and fell over dead on the floor. My GGP took AM's body and loaded it into the truck, and took it to town to the local sheriff, and told him GA came into the living room and told GGP she had seen AM put something into the beans and stir it in. GGP knew something was wrong and was ready. The doctor said it was arsenic poisoning. Not long after that, 3 of the 18 kids they had got very sick and died from swine flu. They buried the kids and didn't want anyone else of their family to die, and left to southern Oklahoma, where they lived out the rest of their lives. My GP died in 1998, and we buried his ashes under the same pear tree my GGM gave birth to him. The house was burned down before they left to make sure that the disease was dead. There's little left of the site, but sometimes when I go there and see it, I always thank God my GGP was smart enough man to know when danger was near and saved my life in the process. Thanks everyone for reading. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. I know it was a little bit shorter, but when you think about the fact that there was 2 shorter episodes, it kinda makes a longer one, right? It balances out. Anyways, now I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.